Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Roundup. So, Bethesda and Xbox have mostly revealed an exclusivity plan that could be quite dramatic. EA's entire company value has now been outmatched by just one game. And that's while the nightmare of FIFA Ultimate Team and some real shady business has came to light. And of course, also a bunch of reports of employee mistreatment to cover too. Loot. Let's talk about loot because it's March. And if you would like a sweet bow pin, like a bow and arrow pin, to match the sword and the shield from January and February, plus of course, sweet sticker, some gorgeous art, Patreon is the place. And of course also behind the scenes videos and a bunch more coming soon too. So a big thank you for all of your support there. And with that said, let's go.
Wake up, Chief.
Hey, you're finally awake.
Hot off the news that the Bethesda-Xbox merger has been approved, well, the PR rush began almost instantly. And most recently, their big roundtable discussion happened. Look, it was over an hour of chatter, but let's just do the key stuff, right? We've got an answer to the big exclusivity question. And that's because, without skipping a beat, Phil Spencer, the head of Xbox, confirmed it. Yes, in the future, there will be Bethesda games exclusive to Xbox consoles and PC. Now, where there are existing communities, contractual obligations, or even legacy, they still, can go cross-platform. But that basically means that for anything after Ghostwire Tokyo, Doom Eternal DLC, and Deathloop, well, anything after that is fair game. And that almost certainly means that Elder Scrolls 6 and Starfield will not show up in the PS5. At least not right away, anyway. And it's that sort of thing where their $7.5 billion investment is going to take a bit of time to pay back, but if you can get some exclusive Bethesda flagship games, I think that would make a dent in the $7.5 billion. So if I was Sony right now, I'd be throwing money at Bethesda and Xbox to try to salvage this. Phil did say that the exclusives are going to be where Game Pass exists. So for now, of course, he means console, PC, and xCloud, but food for thought, right? Maybe they'll try to get Game Pass into more places. Securing Game Pass on other consoles, or denying them Elder Scrolls, one of those two things, well, I think either of them would be one of the biggest wins Xbox would really see, right? It would be incredibly good for their numbers. Now, to sweeten the deal almost immediately for people on the Xbox platforms, they also dropped a staggering list of 20 Bethesda games that are on Game Pass right now. Probably that's something that they've done to soften the blow of the roundtable, having no specific game news or updates. But it was full of fun tidbits, Todd Howard actually said that Fallout 76 is right now one of the most played games on Xbox. So, somebody's playing it. Maybe it's worth somebody taking another look on YouTube. I don't know, maybe I'll get round to it. Beyond that though, look, there was really not that much else to take away from the discussion, so we're not going to waste your time with it. Most of it was just spent, talking about how great the partnership is and, doing introductions of the studios and a little bit of behind the scenes. All neat stuff, but not exactly news. Now, we were told that the next time we'd hear anything would be their own pseudo E3 event. That's going to roughly be in the summertime, but I should note that Windows Central and Thurrott are actually reporting that there's going to be a What's New in Gaming event that'll be coming in at the tail end of March. So maybe we'll get something at that. At any rate, though, it seems like Phil Spencer's vision of billions of people playing Xbox, well, it seems like that is fast approaching. I mean, we all know how massive Skyrim was, sales-wise, and that was almost a decade ago, right? Imagine the numbers that Elder Scrolls 6 is going to do, especially on Game Pass from launch and playable through xCloud. I mean, just the notion that somebody can get the latest Elder Scrolls game, or have access to it, at only the cost of an introductory offer for xCloud, that's certainly going to make Team Xbox seem a little bit more like a value proposition to a bunch of customers. Alright, for our next story, I just want you to think about the biggest games companies for a second, right? I mean, you've got your console manufacturers to start, obviously, but then you get into the various different third parties. You've got your Activision Blizzards Activision Blizzards are the biggest third party by far, with a market cap of $72 billion. Now, who's next behind them? Well, Whatever your guess may be, it's probably wrong, unless you already know the news you're watching, because the number 2 is Roblox. Yeah, it's not EA, it's not Take-Two, it's Roblox. Roblox, as a company, it went public this week. That's over 14 years after Roblox came out, and just the massive popularity of the sort of game-turned-platform ended up blasting its share price to about $75. And that leaves it with a market cap that is higher than Electronic Arts, $38 billion, against EA's $37 billion. And that means the co-founder and CEO of Roblox Group is now worth over $4 billion himself as a result. Although that's a bit technical. He owns assets that are currently valued at $4 billion. That's probably stuff that because of, lockups, he's probably not able to just cash out and spend. But, actually explaining what a net worth is in this context is, it's not something that most of the news does because it makes for a juicier headline, eh? Anyway, if you're wondering why all of this stuff happened, it's pretty damn simple. Roblox is obscenely big. It is played by, and this blew my mind, half of Americans under 16. Just flat out half of Americans. And over 2/3 of those between the ages of 9 and 12. That's big. And at its core, it's a creative and social platform aimed at kids with a monetized player development tools that really does a bunch of the work. It's a bit like how you can get a company like Shopify, but then you can be a developer on the Shopify platform. And that's really the thing. If you want to get a big stock price, it's less about getting a whole bunch of sales right now, and it's more about convincing your investors of future growth potential. That's what Jeff Bezos was able to do with Amazon, which is what allowed him to operate at such a low amount of profitability because of growth, right? So here, people are seeing that they've captured this massive market, and that importantly, it's a platform. It's not just a product, it's a platform. To be fair to them, at least their tutorial for monetization does have a section on being an ethical entrepreneur. Maybe that's something that the AAA developers, or maybe the AAA business people, need to have a read up on. Now, as with plenty of big public floats, Roblox is actually not a massive earner yet. It's worth more than EA, but it only brings in 1/4 of their revenue. That is, of course, because the value lies in expected growth. And there is some serious ambition with it, but, that's really all about it being this expensive online social platform called the Metaverse. And we are, we're really there veering further away from video games and into this, I guess, overall experience and platform that is able to monetize that younger sort of market in a way that I think not that many other platforms do. Right? Because Fortnite is a product. It's not as much of a platform as Roblox, and that's where really you see the growth potential. So what's the takeaway here? Well, I would say it is, do not underestimate the power of building a platform and actually giving players the tools and also the ability to earn money. Because once you create that engine of economic growth, once you create that market within your platform, you're basically enlisting legions of developers from across the world to make your platform better. You capture all those network effects, and that's what'll give you that growth that can lead to a market cap like what we're seeing today for Roblox. Of course, as time goes on, it'll just be a question of, can they continue to sustain that growth? Can they actually produce the growth that currently is being priced into their stock?
Welcome to the most social FIFA Ultimate Team ever.
And next, as if FIFA is not under enough scrutiny for being scummy, it's time for #EAGate. Yes, it's a gate and it's a hashtag, so people are pissed at it. And they should be, actually. Somebody at Electronic Arts was apparently selling rare FIFA Ultimate Team cards under the table. A series of messages allegedly shows an EA employee offering to manually add rare cards to FIFA accounts for upwards of €1,000. So, just wow, right? It's hardly a slight on EA that an employee is doing this under their nose, of course, but it does then show that there's an obscene amount of value that they've just created out of thin air. If people are going to pay €1,000 for 2 cards exactly of their choice, what does that say for your chances and the cost of getting those cards naturally through card packs and the economy that's being built there? You know, so EA are investigating this, they're promising to take action. Obviously, this is a serious wrongdoing, but I also think it looks really bad for EA themselves. We already know that they profit from, the combination of pay-to-win mechanics, artificial scarcity, and gambling, but seeing some numbers just does show, like, how much people are willing to spend for digital items that are made obsolete every year by design. It reveals something that the market price for a card of your choice could be that. Thankfully, though, we are continuing to make slow and steady progress against things like this. The latest news is that Germany is actually considering to enforce an 18+ rating on games that contain loot boxes. But this news comes around the same time that Juniper Research reports that by 2025, loot boxes will be generating 20 billion a year. Of course, they're already bringing in about 15 billion a year, so it is obviously in the industry's best interest to protect them and to lobby as much as they can, at least for now, until those big government guns end up coming out.
This is gonna be good.
And next up, for some more unscrupulous behavior from a publisher, a Japanese report on Capcom has actually lambasted them for their behavior around COVID. It's kind of an interesting situation because apparently, whenever they had their big security breach that we covered, what upper management did as a response is they decided to stop trusting their work-from-home security protocols. And what that meant is that people could not work from home. They actually forced people back into the offices, but that was, of course, going against the Japanese government's advice at the time. So they've been lambasted. Now, to their credit, I should, of course, mention that they didn't just force everybody back to normality in the office. Capcom responded to this story by saying that they are doing everything to ensure the safety of their staff within that workplace, and that means staggering out, work hours, doing temperature checks at the door, things like that. So those security measures are being put in place. Look, if we're serious for a minute here, this would have been a desperately hard situation, right? A desperately hard call to make, because on the one hand, having employees work from home, that does genuinely add to the risk of having company data be stolen. And as we saw with CD Projekt Red, it's not just that company secrets and game info, that's at stake. No, it's also losing employee or customer information. And that's the sort of thing that can be a real serious infraction that can come with fines, and also, of course, a serious impact on the lives of people who have got all their data stolen. So, if that was going to be a problem, having to come into the office that's been made a good bit more safe, you could see how that business decision would be reached. Now, I'm not saying all of this to deflect blame. Obviously, the correct answer here was to invest in cybersecurity and work-from-home infrastructure that was good enough before it was actually needed, and that was clearly not done. In this case, though, they're in a damned if they do, damned if they don't situation, I guess. Now, that said, the report also does highlight some cultural issues that exist if you're working for Capcom. But overall there, I would say that if we take a look into Japanese work culture in general, you'll be a bit shocked by what you find, because a lot of crazy stuff goes on there that is just totally normal for the region. Now, that's not that the rest of the world has been perfect. Of course, the Texas snowstorm happened. It was an unprecedented event that really seems to have taken an entire state out of action. Cutting power, cutting water, cutting heat. There's food shortages and just lots of issues going on for the Texans. Now, according to a Kotaku report, one studio didn't let that stop him, and that was Cloud Imperium, the Star Citizen developers who apparently, forced their employees to continue working, if possible, or face using their paid time off to make up for lost work. Now, this was a genuine natural disaster, and Cloud Imperium apparently did not give employees time or assistance to help them deal with it, while other studios in the area were entirely shut down. And honestly, I think that's kind of wild. Natural disaster is not really something that would hit around where we are, but, one of our team is over in Wales, and I know in parts of Great Britain they've had flooding before. So it's like, if that guy's house was taken out by a flood, or there was disruptions, I can't imagine saying, use your paid time off. You wouldn't do that. I mean, look, it's hard to run a business, obviously, but employee well-being, it really should be number one, because if you make that number one, you're going to have more happy and productive and healthy employees, and that is what you want. Trying to short-term squeeze every ounce of juice out of everybody is just going to leave everybody screwed up, burnt out, and that's going to be bad for your bottom line. So it's stingy. Seemingly cost-saving or productivity-crunching measures like this, they just seem so bizarre and counterproductive to me because they're almost always a net loss to the bottom line. It's like doing the morally right thing is also the best thing for your bottom line. But hey, it's not like Star Citizen has got a release date anytime soon anyway. Though, to be honest with you, I mean, I bought a Freelancer, the ship, I've got Star Citizen, I've played it, I log into Star Citizen every 3 months to see what's happened. I've had a genuinely amazing time, right, messing around in the alpha, so it's that thing where I obviously do have a bias. I love space games. Freelancer, one of Chris Roberts' previous things, I really like that game, and I really love just about everything of Star Citizen that I've seen thus far. So it is a situation where in the future I really want to dive in there and actually try to bring that balanced view of, what's going on, because there's what I like as a player, but then there's also the obvious issues that Cloud Imperium games have had. They're slipping deadlines, they're, things that I think are ethically, morally a little bit questionable. Times where their communications have been misleading and their release dates, they've been the opposite of sandbagged. They've said things and times have just slipped them all by. So it'll be interesting to dive into them in the future. But as for today's video, that is us. And if you'd like to support us, and also, get cool things, like here's our previous 2 months pins. You can get a bow for this month. Of course, access to the daily briefing, which is your daily catch-up of all the gaming news that's thrown into your inbox. It's pretty damn handy to have. You can get all that on Patreon, and it really supports us. So, with all that said, thank you. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time.